Next, from Springfield, we first hear from House Speaker Michael Madigan and Representative Greg Harris, and later from Senate Minority Leader Radogno and House Minority Leader Durkin, as they discuss budget negotiations after having met with the governor. This runs about 20 minutes.
I presume you all know Representative Greg Harris, yes, who is he's the leader of the House budget negotiating team, and he has 7 or 8 fellow members on that team. Their responsibility and their charge is to negotiate a budget for the state of Illinois, and that's the reason that Mr. Harris is here today. Today's meeting was called for the purpose of budget making. Budget making was not discussed in the meeting. My notes would indicate that we talked about 3 topics. Number 1, a format for future meetings. Number 2, workers' compensation changes. And number 3, a discussion regarding the governor's veto of the pension parity bill for the Chicago school system. So those are the topics that were discussed at what was characterized as a budget meeting. Let me say to all of you what I've said to your colleagues in Springfield, that my recommendation to the governor and to all interested parties is that over the last 2 years, we've had 7 successful budget makings by the government of the state of Illinois. And my recommendation is that we follow the format that was used in those 7 successful budget makings. Then we can do a budget today, and as we move through all of these different considerations. So again, the recommendation is follow the format from the 7 successful budget makings, and we can get the job done. Number 2, concerning availability for meetings, I am available for meetings. I was available when the governor was in Rome. I was available when Chris Radogno was not available during the week before Thanksgiving. So I am available for meetings. Let me give you Mr. Harris, and he can offer his comments on this budget meeting.
Thank you, Speaker. And to emphasize what the Speaker said, we think it's important to work together as Democrats and Republicans in both the House and the Senate, folks from the city of Chicago, the suburbs, central Illinois, and downstate Illinois, to make some very difficult decisions that we're all going to have to face when it comes time to finalize this budget. All of us are going to have to play a role. We have to be sure that diverse needs of our state are met. We've put together on the House side a very diverse group of legislators representing all regions of the state, various ethnic interests in the state, to be sure that the different minority caucuses are adequately represented, that the downstate interests, the central Illinois and the suburban interests are represented. And we believe that working together, we can find a solution and pass a permanent budget solution for the state of Illinois. Thanks.
Mr. Madigan, you mentioning your framework comment of a minute ago and trying to follow the previous formats. Why add agenda items of your own sort of late in the game as you've done?
What would they be, please?
Your various things that you've attempted to attach yourself.
Mm-hmm. Such as memorandums of understanding.
For example, sure.
State collective bargaining contract. Those are all items that affect the budget making and the cost of the budget. So let's begin with the current bargaining between the governor and the AFSCME union and other unions. That's a very significant element in the spending. It's a high cost item in the budget. And since we're at this meeting today and we're doing other meetings on the budget and on budget making, I think it's extremely appropriate that we consider the cost of the future collective bargaining agreement, which is under bargaining right now between the governor and AFSCME and the other unions. On memorandums of understanding, these were employed when Blagojevich was the governor. And they happened because there was a lack of trust with the Blagojevich administration. And today there's a lack of trust with the Rauner administration because of prior budget negotiations where the governor didn't follow through on the promise that was offered during the negotiation. So the items that I'm suggesting are all items that are pertinent to the budget and pertinent to the budget making. And as I said, the stated purpose of this meeting today was budget making. That's why we were called here. I'm sure you were all told that was the purpose of the meeting.
Did you raise the AFSCME contract this morning?
We didn't talk about it.
But I mean, you could. You're there. You're the speaker.
And I was being respectful to the governor. It's his meeting. He set the agenda for the meeting. And as I explained earlier, he discussed 3 items in his meeting.
Did he say that was the agenda and you couldn't discuss other items?
Again, it's the governor's meeting. I'm respectful to the governor. I let him go right through his agenda.
So what was
He,
said about the issue on pensions? You said that was raised. The veto
It was a discussion among the people in the meeting about the events that led to the veto and understandings that were in place among participants to the passage of the bill last spring.
What was your understanding?
My understanding was that pretty much what you've seen reported in the media.
That there was no tie between the two, between state pension reform and the CPS pension reform?
I'm not going to get into that.
Or
Any other
pension
questions?
benefit?
Any other questions?
Sir, do you support efforts by your members to get paid?
I'm not familiar with that lawsuit. You know, I'm not a plaintiff in the lawsuit, and I haven't read the complaint. And so I plan to get a copy of the complaint and read the complaint so I can understand what it's all about.
Can you say what was discussed about the other 2 issues that you say the governor did raise?
Well, we talked about a format for future meetings. We talked about workers' compensation. And
So
we
what
talked
was discussed on workers' comp?
every item that's been discussed for the last 5 to
Causation
6
standard,
to
was that
7.
discussed?
Well, it goes well beyond causation. There's traveling employees. There's rotation of arbitrators downstate. There's use of computers and filing. All the issues that have been discussed over 5 to 6 to 7 months.
Was any progress made in terms of any agreement on reform?
Well, as I said, you know, this was in the context of a budget meeting. We were summoned here today to talk about the budget, and we talked about workers' compensation and format for future meetings in the veto of the Chicago pension parity bill. So that was the essence of the meeting.
Is the format for tomorrow discussed?
I believe tomorrow they want to talk about consolidation of local governments.
Pardon?
Consolidation of local governments.
Okay.
Yeah.
I sense a frustration.
So you can understand how that relates to the state budget, right? Consolidation of local government. It's real easy to understand that connection, isn't it?
Well, I think the governor would say he wants a property tax raise, and in order to do that, you need to reduce costs of local governments. Would that be his argument?
That's what the governor would say.
I sense a level of frustration. And I know when we do these stories, we hear from people that live in the state who are frustrated. Talk to the people of Illinois about what is the issue. People are looking at the saying, what's the big deal? Get it done.
Sure, and that's where I say, as I said at the beginning, we've done 7 successful budget makings over 2 years, following the same format. We can do an 8th following the same format. Again, this was advertised as a budget meeting. We talked about the format for future meetings, workers' compensation, and the veto of the Chicago pension parity bill.
So it sounds like what you're saying is your concern beyond obviously the issues that are on the table. Is your concern that you think that the governor will renege on what agreements come out of these budget meetings? Is that?
That's a concern that's been voiced by members in the legislature, not by me. Not
So-
by me, by members in the legislature who are called upon to vote on these bills. So that's just a reaction to people in the legislature, and I'm sure they would share that view with you if you were talking to them.
So you trust what the governor says. So if he says, you take him at his word.
Excuse me?
You take the governor at his word.
It depends on what he said.
Is your goal on the budget to get an agreement for the next 6 months, the last 6 months of this fiscal year?
My interest is a budget. My interest is a budget and budget making. Okay, that's an important thing to understand, because we've done 7 successful budget makings over 2 years, following the same format all 7 times. So my interest is the budget and budget making.
But
You
one
were
other,
saying you wanted to be respectful, obviously, but
Yeah.
can you just describe what you felt knowing that this was not a budget meeting as you thought it was going to be?
The same frustration that the people of Illinois are feeling. You're correct. People are frustrated. They want an answer. They think that people in government ought to resolve these issues, okay? So I feel the same way. And that's why I continue to say that 7 times we've done budgets. The governor and the legislature has agreed, the legislature has passed the bill, the governor signed the bill 7 times, following the same format.
is there a difference between you and the governor on the budgets in that he wants to talk about a full budget and he contends you want to talk about a stopgap budget?
Yeah, that was a false statement by the governor, which I've spoken to down in Springfield. I'm here for a budget. I'm here for budget making. The only person that's ever asked for a stopgap budget was the governor. And he did that at the end of May, at the end of June. He did that at the end of June. I've never asked for a stopgap budget. The only person that has asked for a stopgap budget was the governor at the end of June. So listen, everybody, you all have a great day.
All right, thank you, Speaker. Good to see you. Tomorrow morning, 10 o'clock? Most I've ever seen.
Well, I guess it's good afternoon at this point. I think we had probably one of the most productive meetings that we've had in a long time. We talked at length about the need to make our state more competitive. In today's meeting, in particular with workers' comp, very detailed discussion. I think we're close to common ground on that. So I would say that by and large, we had a good meeting today. We're looking forward to tomorrow talking about unfunded mandates and consolidation, another issue that is integral to putting our state on a sound financial footing going forward. So I would characterize today and hopefully tomorrow as productive.
Agreed. This today was, I would say, was the best discussion we've had on a major, probably one of the most important reform measures that we have been discussing for such a long time, and that's workmen's compensation reform. I was very pleased with President Cullerton was fully engaged in discussing that particular issue, and I'm hopeful that we can make some greater progress down the road. Now, workmen's compensation is something that affects not only state government, but it also affects local government. It affects our business community. It is integrally related to our budget and how we project ourselves to employers in state, but also attracting businesses into this state as well. So it's something we've been talking about for a long time. It is a key, and I believe that is a major key to breaking the impasse. So I'm pleased that we've made some progress today.
Questions?
What was your sense from the speaker as to his views about workers' comp reform?
He was very quiet.
Not much.
Did Senate President Cullerton indicate there are issues on which he would agree with you?
He
on
was
workers'
very
comp?
engaged.
Which issues do you think are you close
You know,
to?
there's no point in going, it's the same things we've talked about for a long time. What's important is there was real engagement on the issue. What concerned me about the meeting is, while we have one set for tomorrow, I did hear the speaker talk about future meetings, and he has been unwilling to commit to anything beyond tomorrow. He will only take it day by day, which means I'm fearful we'll get back in a situation where we have a meeting set and then at the last minute he's unable to attend. What's been asked of all 4 leaders is to provide a schedule whereby we could meet, identify a couple of days a week between now and Christmas, and he's unwilling to do that, which makes it very, very difficult to continue getting a consensus.
We've only got 3.5 weeks left in this month, and that's when our spending authority runs out. And I will just state, I hope the speaker can give us some more certainty about his availability. But myself and the president of the Senate and the governor, Senator Radogno, we're available. But we're running out of time, and we need to try to bring some type of conclusion to break this impasse. And as by meeting today, we made some progress. But by keeping it out there and we'll get back to you later type of attitude on availability is not going to make us move any further down the road to breaking this budget impasse, which is what all Republicans and Democrats, rank and file, want to see us get done, along with everybody in Illinois.
He did just come out and basically say, I thought this was supposed to be a budget meeting, and it kind of wasn't. He seemed to be frustrated.
This was a leaders' meeting. And the plan all along from day one is that there has to be reforms in order to get to a balanced budget. The Speaker often refers to the 7 budgets that have been done in the last 2 years. They have all been stopgap. They have all been incomplete. So they were not successful budgets.
And how much are his own agenda items being added to the mix here, hurting the progress? The MOU and so forth.
We didn't discuss that
We
today.
didn't even discuss MOU, so I don't know where.
That's more of a distraction.
Yeah.
He also said that he is available. That's what before you guys came
Yeah.
out, he said he's available, he's willing to talk.
But he won't tell us when he's available. That's the problem. Obviously, everybody has obligations. I mean, family obligations, other work obligations. So the idea was, logically, to everyone put forth the days they're available. And 3 of the 4 leaders and the governor have done that. The Speaker says, I won't commit to anything.
All 5 of us live in the area, so it's not really a problem for us to come down here and meet for a couple hours any day of the week. This is not a situation where one of the leaders lives in central Illinois or southern Illinois. We're Chicago and suburban based.
How much of these letters, memorandum of understanding, how much is that serving as an impasse, or you think
I don't even know what he's talking about, to be honest. I mean, those were something that were used in some dark days of our state. I think that we should, if we have issues, they need to be discussed, but we didn't even discuss what he meant by that.
He's more critical of the fact that he says the governor sets the agenda. He says the governor and you folks call this a budget meeting. He says there's nothing specifically on the budget. He said, for example, AFSCME is an important issue. He says he'd like to see that discussed. Wasn't discussed.
He should have brought it up.
Should have raised it.
He should have brought it up.
Raised the issue.
Out of respect, he's letting the governor set the agenda. That's what he said here.
That's playing games with words. That's nonsense. We can talk about anything that anybody wants to talk about.
Do you sense a divide between the Speaker and Cullerton at this point?
I'd ask them about it. I mean,
I'll just
I don't
say
wanna
that
speak
the
for him.
president was very engaged with bringing some conclusion to workmen's compensation reform. Very important, as I said earlier, towards breaking the budget impasse.
And the Speaker was quiet.
Yes.
quiet.
Do you think
Thank
this
you.
might
Thank
isolate
you.
the speaker?